Hey everyone, welcome to the Matt Report. As always, I'm your host, Matt. And where the heck have you been all this time? If you haven't been watching, this is the show where we talk to other WordPress entrepreneurs, freelancers, startups about their business, about how they run their WordPress business. Give us a little tips, some feedback on the pros and cons of what it's like. So if you want to join in on the discussion, head on over to mattreport.com to find all the other awesome interviews. Today, joined by Aaron Holbrook. Aaron, how are you?
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you. Finally scheduled. You are the magical unicorn running through the forest that I have finally lassoed to get you on the Matt Report.
I'm hard to pin down, I swear.
So, Aaron, you take us through that 2-minute drill, that 2-minute elevator pitch of who you are and what you do in WordPress.
Sure. I'm Aaron Holbrook. I run A7 Web Design, which is a web development agency. We do a lot of WordPress development. And I've been working with WordPress since about 2005, and in that time, I've been a webmaster and did everything from photography to video recording. So it's nice now that I'm more full-time and freelancing on my own, and I can really focus on doing WordPress development, which is what I love. So
that's awesome.
I've got a wife and 2 kids, and I'm living the dream. I'm working from home and doing what I love. So.
Nice.
That's the elevator pitch.
Previous to starting the freelance gig, were you working full-time in some kind of development role somewhere else, some kind of tech role?
I was a webmaster for a hospital. I did that for a number of years. But like I said, it wasn't a development role. It was a content management role, as well as just kind of managing the presence online and managing authors and all sorts of things like, the boardroom lights aren't working. Please come figure out how to turn them on. So,
yeah.
It's nice to be able to actually expand my expertise and actually do things that I like to do.
That's awesome. When was the first time you ran into WordPress and you had that aha moment that this piece of software could build a career for me?
Well, the first time I ran into WordPress, I had just finished building a very, very rudimentary CMS using some PHP. It was in college, it was my junior year, and one of my buddies was like, hey, why don't you just check out WordPress or, one of these open source CMSs? And I did. I'm like, what the heck am I doing building my own? Like, this has got everything. It's got user authentication. It's got, content management. It's got everything already there. And it's just, I've favored WordPress in particular because of the open community and the plugins surrounding it, as well as the community itself, and just the ease of use and the friendliness that's always kind of gone along with the software itself and the community. So I'm super, super happy to see how it's grown and to see that it's become pretty much the best open source CMS out there. I know I'm going to get tons of mail. Please don't email me. But yeah, in my opinion, I think it's one of the best, and I just love that it's really easy for end users to learn how to use. So
yeah, coming from my background, coming from the Drupal community, it was an eye opener seeing how easy WordPress was to use and to implement, and then train folks who are not technically savvy to use it.
Definitely.
Let's think back to your first freelance client. What was that like? How did it go? And do you remember it?
I do. And this was actually before I started building on WordPress, but it was for a teacher of mine in college. And it was cool because it actually opened up a couple things. I realized this was right when Eric Meyer published his 2 books on CSS, and tables were going by the wayside, or at least that was the hope, because table layouts were just a nightmare to do. So I remember a lot about learning how to do CSS for more than just link styling and whatnot. And it opened up photography. I realized because I had to take some mug shots of her, and I just had a little Canon point and shoot, but it had a pretty good depth of field, and so I was able to take some nice pictures. And I realized that they turned out pretty good. I actually got asked by the college to start a student photography bureau. So it was pretty cool because then I got to play with some real cameras, and it kind of went from there. So I combined my love of photography and artistic talent with actual logic and programming. So
very nice.
It's a nice little hybrid that I have.
Nice. And about how long did it take you to transition into saying, I'm going to use WordPress for all of my client projects?
Probably when I was a couple years into my webmaster's job, and I had gone through multiple proprietary CMSs. And if you've ever used, you came from Drupal, so even Drupal's not that bad. Drupal's open source, and you can contribute, and people are working on it, and you have a large community. Proprietary CMSs are really, really bad. Most of the time because you have a very, very small subset of people that are actually committed to working on it, and they don't typically get around to fixing bugs, even if you're very diligent about reporting them. So, when I started doing those, I started doing a little bit of work on the side, and for a client, I figured, now that WordPress has got some custom post types, this was back when 2.9 rolled out, I can use WordPress as a CMS. It's not just, it's not just a blog system anymore. So I was able to use that, and it did everything I needed to, and especially with the custom taxonomies and the metadata, there's absolutely no problem. So building a custom website was pretty simple. So that's about, I think I would say probably in 2009 is when I started really taking WordPress and using it, and I knew it would be what I use primarily.
When you first started that, when you did that back in 2009, did you already have your mind set on the A7 web studios, or did you already, did you just kind of grow into that and say, I'm really going to progress this into the next level?
No, I actually did start in 2009. That's when I first registered my company. Okay. So I said, I wanted to start doing this on the side. I eventually want to take this and be, my full-time job. And so I registered my name. And the A7 name kind of came out of me. A7 is kind of symbolic of myself because A for Aaron, and then 7 is my birthday, May 7th. So, and that's always been my lucky number. So I really like those two things together. And when I was looking, I'm sure you can attest, finding a unique domain name is one of the hardest things you can do. So, that's not already taken. So I had read somewhere use a number in your name and it becomes automatically so much more unique, and it's a lot easier to get a nice name. So I put those together and I found A7 Web, and I'm like, perfect. I'm A7 Web Design, that's it. And so that's kind of how it started. But I tried to do everything right because I had done, side jobs always in the past, but I'd always wanted to be an actual business owner. I was an entrepreneur. I wanted to actually do everything right. So I registered. I got one of the lawyers at the hospital that I was working at to kind of look over my business plan and all the registration stuff. So it was nice to have that contact. But yeah, I got registered and I got an accountant. I got serious, and
So right out of the gate, you're aligning yourself with all these different resources and assets. You mentioned something about a business plan. That's very unique to at least my show so far, because not a lot of folks start with a business plan. They kind of just fall into this mix. What was that like, and do you still adhere to that same business plan?
It's actually funny. I was going through and cleaning out some folders and files lately, and I found my business plan, and I had to laugh because it was projected revenue, projected growth, and it's just shooting for the moon.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. I'm able to stay home, but I'm definitely not pulling in $300,000 a year. So, right. Your expectations are definitely different than what is reality, and finding the clients and finding the work, I think, was the biggest thing for me. But I don't know. I didn't find I didn't find a business plan help me in one bit. I did think it was a requirement to register. I don't know if that's true or if that's still true or whatever, but I did it anyway. So I wanted to have all my T's crossed and I's dotted. But
yeah,
yeah.
I guess in some regard, it kind of helps validate yourself that you're getting ready to embark on this.
Well, and it's such a big step too. I mean, luckily I still had my full-time job, and that was nice. But when you're working a full-time job and you're trying to do stuff on the side, you can never really commit to your side job, your freelance, until you get rid of what's taking up all your time.
Yeah.
And when you do take that step, you become so much more inspired and energetic, and that's all you're doing, and you have to do it to survive. So you immediately, I mean, it works. Like, so I don't know. I've found it to be a cool journey.
Was it a difficult step to take? Were you a little stressed or concerned about quitting full time?
To actually make it? Yeah, you know, at the time I was going through some things with work, and it ended up being pretty kind of a mutual thing where I was ready to leave and they were about ready to kind of kick me out. So I took the step, and I got kind of lucky because I got some severance for it as well. So it was nice. I had a little bit of a cushion, and that helped get me kind of on my way. Plus, I have an awesome wife who supported me through the whole thing. If I didn't have her and, you know, the health insurance that she carries, that would have been a much, much harder challenge.
Yep. Now you take that leap, you get rid of the full-time, you get into your own gig, you hit the ground running. Did you have a client base already? Did you start just getting out there and marketing yourself? How did you do that, and what were your experiences?
I had a couple clients, but nothing that was sustaining me full-time. And I did. I tried to get out there and market. I did everything from Facebook ads to Google ads to, you know, going around and I even tried cold calling for a while. Never again. But what I found to actually be the most successful was putting myself out there on like Elance and just doing really cheap jobs, like getting really cheap jobs done and doing a good job, getting a good rating, and just making connections that way. Actually, one of the first jobs that I got was to upload a website to a server. Like, that was it. And I bid $10. I got the job. I did it. It ended up being a lot more complicated because it was requiring ASP, and like no hosts support ASP anymore except like GoDaddy. So we had to like try a bunch of different hosts. We eventually settled on GoDaddy. Then he wanted some changes, and I obliged. And he actually turned into a client that I've kept until today. Like he's in Australia, and he's a business like consultant. So he does like innovation lab and does consultancy work and design for a lot of companies. And what happens is he gets a lot of web work, and then he calls me up and he says, "Hey, can you help me out?" So, you know, just doing a simple job on that turned into, you know, a really long-term client. So
that's an interesting story, because a lot of the stuff that we try to learn as freelancers and as people running our own businesses, and at least with the Matt Report, a lot of it is how to elevate yourself out of that client that's just asking for the moon for $500. But you take on a job for $10, and that ends up being a lifelong customer. It's kind of an interesting comparison there. You know, I see what you were doing when you just started. You were just trying to grab and fill in those hours.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is your advice to that person who wants to charge $500 to do a site? Now, are you elevating yourself to a certain level of
Definitely. I don't look at anything unless it's like $5,000, you know, because like honestly, I was doing a lot of the smaller jobs, but when the volume starts coming in, that's when you raise your rates. You know, when you're too busy to take on more work, but you're getting more work, then that's when you raise your rates, and you keep doing that. And as you raise your rates, if you keep getting, as you raise your rates, if people stop coming to you, then you back them down a little bit, and you play that game until you're at a point where you're sufficiently happy and you're pulling in enough money, but you're not crazy busy and you're not like dead. Yep. You know, you're not completely dead. So, yep. I would tell the person in that I have found that like starting at such a low level with those clients, it's so hard to raise rates on existing clients. That's one of the hardest things that I've found. Mm-hmm. And telling a new client, hey, my rate is $150 an hour is no big deal. But for the client that I started at $35 an hour, that is a big deal. You know, so you can move them up slowly, but it's still a hard thing, and you kind of have to transition them with the new clients that you're getting that better rate at. But it's nice to get that volume filled, to know that you're getting some business, and eventually just it's all in the referrals. It's getting out there, going to meetups, going to WordCamps, getting your name out there, and just once you start getting your name out there, and honestly, it's a great market for developers. It really is. Like, I know I'm looking for people to help me out on projects, so if you're a halfway decent developer and you're always interested in learning more, get your name out there and start talking to people, because it's hard not to find work right now.
Right,
you know?
right. How did you explain? So if you had a brand new customer, a customer that just walked in the door, they weren't a referral, they were local mom and pop. How did they react to that? I'm only going to do work at 5,000 and above. What is your advice to getting folks to explain the value of doing business with them at a higher than average price range?
I typically don't want to waste my time trying to explain that to somebody that doesn't even have the budget, even if they understood it. Like, it's just not it's not valuable for me to try to do that. I don't think it'll happen. Typically I wait until, I wait until somebody comes to me and says, hey, I've got this job. So, that's been working great. I get plenty of work. Typically I find a lot of work comes repeat. So I do a lot of subcontract work for people or agencies, that have larger clients and have like big name clients. Yeah. So for the mom and pop though, like if they did come to me, I'd probably refer them to a friend that's still growing their business, or maybe handles more, more sites like that style. Yeah. I don't like to do that because I'd rather be deep in the code. I'd rather be developing and, problem solving than just setting up theme after theme and customizing little things. Yeah. But that's just me.
No, it's still a great answer. We talked a little bit before the show, and I had made mention that I feel like the A7 website, it does kind of give off that like serious agency feel, not in a bad way, but it just looks like, wow, like an accomplished team has built this website.
Thanks, man.
And maybe that's because I'm in the business, or we're in the business, and we kind of look at it like, well, this isn't just your typical, one man shop. But you say it's important to show that that you're the solopreneur, you're the guy behind the scenes. Why is that?
I think in this could be right, this could be wrong. I don't know. This is what I know. But branding yourself is way easier than branding some no-name company. So I try to always relate back to the human element, because I think people identify more readily with that. So branding A7 is, it's just actually Aaron Holbrook, and he's a really nice guy. He's communicative. He's responsible. He gets things done when he says he's going to. I feel like that's a lot easier to get across to clients than A7 is a professional business and using stock photos and all that stuff, which you've seen a million times. And, it's not me. It's not what I do. So, I want people to understand that I'm human and that I make mistakes, but I'm willing to fix them, and I'm willing to take responsibility. And I always try to be professional. So,
yeah, that's a great answer. And I think that, I had a pretty good conversation with Jose Caballero of the group and of the school, and he talked about how, the three different levels of agencies, like the boutique agency that does something for 5,000 to 10,000, the middle tier agency, which is like 25 to 50,000, and then the real high end stuff, which is 100,000 plus, and that a lot of other big businesses, other brand names that hire these top level agencies, when it all comes down to it, they're looking for that plausible deniability. Like, hey, I hired the best team to do this, and if the project didn't work out, whether or not it just didn't launch or it didn't convert on whatever they were trying to sell, they could always say to their board or to their investors and say, hey, I hired the best. It's not my fault. It's, I paid the price for these guys, and they just didn't come through. Do you find yourself getting overlooked from bigger brands because you are pitching yourself as the single guy?
It's still so early. Like, I've only been doing this. God, so I opened up in 2009. I've been freelance almost 2 years. So honestly, I don't even feel like I've just been like steadily growing. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not even looked at by larger agencies or larger companies. I mean, I'm doing a lot of subcontract work for agencies that are doing that. So I don't know. I mean, I would love to get into that arena, but I know that it's really hard. I mean, you've got to have the connections, you've got to have the name brand, and you've got to have the record for it. So I don't feel like I could even compete in that arena, really. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy just doing what I'm doing. I'm like I said, I'm living the dream. I can stay at home with my kids and my wife, and I can go down and play with them. I can take a break whenever I want. I don't have to. I have no commute. I don't know. It's nice, but at the same time, like, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 80. I probably will want to be doing something, but I don't think I want to be requiring to, be logging 60 hours a week building, some websites. So I think in terms of that, I've been trying to, and I think a lot of people would like to get some sort of recurring, passive interest or passive revenue. So either building an iPhone app, which I've been learning Objective-C, which is way different than PHP, or just building like a software as a service, like a CRM or something. That's always on the back of my mind. And being a solopreneur, you can do whatever you want. So if I want to take a month off and focus on my own projects, I can.
Yeah, that's great. Let's talk about how, before we started the show, you were talking about how you wanted to help others in learning development. I'm assuming specifically for WordPress. What do you have going on in terms of that? I noticed that sometimes you've been doing a Google Plus Hangout with some others in the community. Yeah. I actually,
I just try to help people that are where I was, I just did a screencast over on my blog, aaronjholbrook.com, which basically laid out what the template hierarchy is in WordPress. And if you've heard of it and you know what it is, okay, yeah, like, that's not a big deal. But for people that have never heard of it, it is a big deal. And understanding that it is a big deal and learning what it is so insightful. It's enlightening when you actually understand what it is, because it allows you to understand what WordPress is looking for in terms of the files in your theme. So I really like doing stuff like that. I talk at a bunch of meetups, and I talk at WordCamps all over. That's where I met you, Matt, in WordCamp Providence, even though I'm out in Chicago. So, I don't know. I just really like helping people get to that next level, provided that they're wanting to learn that.
That's great. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, what did inspire you to come all the way out to Providence?
It looked fun, and you guys were looking for speakers. I applied, and they accepted me. So I was like, nice. Why not? Let's road trip. Well, actually, not road trip. I took the plane.
But. So do you have big plans for maybe like the Google Plus Hangout, more podcast media? You said you did the screencast.
Yeah, well, and I just bought this nice professional microphone, Blue Yeti, which has been pretty nice. I'm impressed by my own voice coming out of it. So, no, I did some radio in college, and that was always kind of a fun thing. So I like doing the screencasts. If people like them, I think I'll do some more. I was going to do a whole blog series on like be a better developer, kind of talking about like Verdump and template hierarchy, and I've got a whole list of things that I think once you get a basis of understanding, you'll kind of get to that next level. So I was going to do a blog post or a blog series on that, but I think I might just do them as a series of screencasts. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think doing the screencast is great, especially for this technical stuff. I'm just a project manager. I understand functions and hierarchy, but I would never be able to look at it and understand it. I can understand it when you talk to me, but seeing it visually and being able to pause and zoom in on code and just say, here's what you should be doing, and comparing it with other stuff, I think screencast is definitely the way to go for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about WordPress and WordPress community. What is it about WordPress community and events like WordCamps and meetups that's so beneficial to somebody who's just starting out?
Just the networking. I mean, you hear that in so many professions. It's get out there and network. It's all about the people you know. I mean, it really is. If you're sitting there in your own basement, just doing websites, and you don't have any connections, you're probably going to be on Elance, and that's about it. You might get some jobs, but if you don't have people referring you, or recommending you, or whatever the case may be, it's so important to have that community and that network of people. So I think it's really cool. And actually, in the Chicagoland community, there's a pretty strong group of people that are like-minded, and we all chat. We all hang out on a Skype chat, and we pretty much talk every day about anything from like the latest hacker news to I don't know. It's just nice having that community and going to the WordCamps and meeting other people.
Any advice you mentioned about maybe the developer designer who's just working out of their basement and not leaving the house, going to so many WordCamps, seeing that there's a clear line of, and a lot of developers and designers say they're self-proclaimed introverts. They're afraid to go out and talk to other folks. I mean, you sat down with us when we did a video presentation at WordCamp Providence. I mean, you are the exception to the rule. What is your advice to get these people motivated to just go up and say hi to somebody, to start a dialogue?
Well, in taking a step back, introvert is actually not that you're afraid to go up and talk to people, but it's that you feel most comfortable when you're alone, when you recharge. So an extrovert recharges when they're around other people, an introvert recharges when they're by themselves. I'm very much an introvert. I love being by myself. I love being at home with my family. But I still love going out and meeting people too. So I would say, how do you kind of get over that hurdle if you are maybe a little shy? I don't know. I've never been shy. I don't know. Just find.
Have you ever seen that?
Actually, a great example would be to get a buddy. Get a friend that's interested in, or at least can fake it for a couple hours. Go to the conference with them. Have a conference buddy. That way you're not alone. And you can sit with them and you can talk to them, and you can like get other people around you. You can go to talk to other people together, or you can like branch off on your own, and you can know that they'll be okay. But that gives you kind of the comfort level of being able to still, talk to other people and be comfortable at that event. I've done that a couple times, especially traveling all the way to Providence. It's nice too because a conference buddy you can usually room up with and split the cost. So, but it's nice because you both can go off and meet other people, and then the nice thing about that is they met this person and I met this person, and then we can meet all together, and we can get even more networking.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer, great advice. Conference buddy, definitely outline that in the show notes. With all the good stuff said about WordPress and the WordPress
petting conference buddy. Yeah.
With all the good stuff said about WordPress and the community, what's your one gripe about WordPress, be it the software or the community, that you think it can improve on?
I would love to see people that sell on ThemeForest be allowed to contribute to the conferences. So I have a personal stake in that, though. Jay Caputo actually is from around the Chicago area, and he's a good friend of mine. And he was on the organizing committee for Chicago with me. And it kind of sucks not to be able to have his help. Even though he's willing and he's a great guy, he spoke last year, and he's got a lot to offer the community. I think it's a shame to prohibit people like that from sharing their knowledge and giving back. I mean, I think that's my biggest gripe right now. Yeah, no,
I'm with you 100%. It would be like telling somebody in the 1% that they can't, volunteer at a soup kitchen or something like that.
Exactly.
Just because they're making, money somewhere else.
Well, and it all goes back to the license issue, and like they're actually following the letter of the law, but Matt still doesn't like it enough, so he's just prohibiting it. So yeah. It's kind of stupid if you ask me.
Do you think that ThemeForest should come out with a solution to help with that, or is that something that it's up to WordPress and the foundation to fix?
No, I think Matt's in the wrong. I don't think he should be prohibiting people, but at the same time, I don't think it's Collis's place or ThemeForest's place to actually put their foot in and say, we don't want people to be forced to do this, so we're not going to allow it. I don't think it's their place to do it. So I think they should open it up. And the people that want to, great. The people that don't, they don't have to. I think giving the people the option is the best route.
Yeah. Because as it boils down, these are volunteers, right? These are volunteers who are intelligent, who are still giving back to WordPress in another fashion, and simply volunteering and being at these WordCamps is giving back to WordPress. I mean,
and completely helping new people to understand what WordPress is, and getting them in, and so you don't scare them off. I mean, I think it's nice having WordPress as a brand. It is a recognized global name. I mean, when I don't have to sell it anymore. I used to have to try to sell, okay, I'll be using WordPress on your project. Now I don't have to. Everybody knows what it is and kind of expects it. Like, okay, that's kind of what my niece told me or my nephew. Like, WordPress is good. So
right. No, I agree with you 100%. The other thing is that, I mean, if you look at like what WordPress.com is doing with all these verticals, that's another scary kind of thing that's going on, because I don't think a lot of folks are picking up on it just yet because it hasn't impacted the community. But I mean, now you're getting verticals like restaurant themes, educational themes, gallery themes, what's next? Real estate, probably. Some other vertical that maybe somebody in the community has built a niche around, and now you have .com offering it for a very, very little price.
It kind of goes back to the whole like Starbucks moving into the independent roaster right next door. And I actually learned this from Marco Arment, who's the creator of Instapaper. It actually brings more business to the independent coffee shop because they didn't either know it existed or they never gave it a try. But then Starbucks moves in, and Starbucks is known for finding really, really predatory places to put their coffee shops. But what happens is people end up going to Starbucks and becoming fans, and okay, they start liking coffee, or they really like the habit of going there. But maybe one day the line's too long, and there's a coffee shop right next door, and they go check it out, and then they become more favorable towards the independent coffee shop. So I think in that sense, like, the WordPress.com is offering a lot of solutions, but what happens when they need something a little bit more custom, or they want to do this one thing and WordPress.com doesn't allow it? Well, then they're going to need to go out, and they already have in their mind WordPress is great, but I want to do some more custom stuff. Well, okay, there's plenty of people out there that do custom work. So
right.
I think, I'm taking a cautionary approach, but so far, like you said, it hasn't impacted me, but I really don't think it will.
Yeah. The other thing that could spawn from this, and we've already seen a little bit of it with Pressnomics, are other WordPress events that aren't WordCamps. You have Pressnomics, and who knows? There could be another revolution of meetups for centered around WordPress that are just as useful.
Mm-hmm.
And why not? I mean, WordCamps are so inexpensive. And because you're organizing one, I helped organize one, and there's a letter of the law that you have to follow. You can only charge so much for sponsors.
Exactly, yeah. There's so many rules in place, and it's very political. So
right. So why not have a WordPress event that lasts a weekend that's $500, but the value of it is immense,
Right, and if people want to go to it, great.
Exactly.
I don't see the problem with it. I think WordCamps are important, and I think having them inexpensive is great. But at the same time, like if there's going to be different events centered around WordPress, I think more the merrier, anything to grow the community, I think is great.
Yeah. Well, this has been an awesome conversation about you coming up in freelancing to starting your own business, to expanding that business, how to get started in development, all the way to the WordPress community. So I thank you for that. Let's jump into the last two segments. First segment is what's in your toolbox. What type of software besides WordPress or hardware do you use on a daily basis to run your business? Evernote.
This is the most fun part, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Evernote, Gmail, iPad. What is it that you use on a day-to-day basis?
So my basic setup looks like a 27-inch iMac and then a 29-inch secondary screen. I love having a secondary screen, and I bought a late 2011 iMac, so I don't have Thunderbolt, and I actually am going to wait until I need to upgrade my iMac, but I'd love to have Thunderbolt so I could have a third display. That would be my ideal world. But I also have a MacBook Air that I purchased recently, especially with all the traveling. I love having something light that I can still do some work on, and I can still check email. The biggest issue I found is actually figuring out how to sync things like flawlessly. Yeah. So I actually have done quite a bit in terms of like writing some text expander snippets to do a really quick MySQL dump and then do a really quick MySQL import, and they both go to the same spot. So I could say MySQL dump iMac. It'll dump iMac's MySQL database to a shared folder in Dropbox, and then once Dropbox is synced, I can pull it in on the air, and I can just type MySQL import iMac. So that's really nice, because one of the biggest, I keep all my dev files in Dropbox, so that's always been updated but in synced. But having MySQL actually stay in sync is kind of a problem, because if I set up a new dev site on my desktop, when I go to work on it on the air, it's not there. So I need to either reset it up, which is a pain, or I can try to do a manual export, and that takes a while. So, and if I forget to do it, then I'm screwed there too. So, in terms of like software though, I would say I love Google Chrome. I used to love Firefox, but now I do almost everything in Chrome. I use Apple Mail with Google Apps for email. I've tried to administrate my own email, and my God, that is a major headache. Like, unless you're an actual email admin, you don't want to do that. Yep. Even with Google Apps, like charging $5 a month or whatever, it's so worth them to handle your email.
Yeah, I was an email admin at my old job, and it was just a nightmare. And it's one of those products where no one wants to pay for it, but they want like 1,000% uptime, and they need their emails everywhere, but they're not willing to pay for it.
And don't let me get spam, but don't take away my good email. Exactly. And like make sure that I don't look like I'm sending spam, and making sure that I'm whitelisted. And oh my God,
the headache.
It's a nightmare.
Yep. That was always the headache.
So Google handling my email is completely fine. I do a lot with Skype. I used to be 100% for Google Talk and Jabber, but clients don't have Jabber, and they don't know what you're talking about. They think you're like having a stroke. So I like Skype. My one caveat with Skype is I wish I could change my handle, like, because it was back when I played World of Warcraft that I made it. So like I have this handle that I have, and I'd rather have it be something more professional. But Skype doesn't allow you to change your handle. You have to completely create a new account, which is a pain in the butt. So I've been doing a lot more with Twitter. So definitely follow me on Twitter if you care to see what I'm doing. Aaron J. Holbrook. But I find that there's a lot of engagement and networking that actually happens on Twitter. And it's cool. Like, people can reach out to other people that they don't actually have a connection with and say, hey, I saw what you were doing and I think it's cool, and blah, blah, blah. Or like, I can ask you a question, or I can reach out to some of my friends and just see who's available and say, I'm having a problem debugging Nginx. Anybody, got a couple minutes or whatever? And people reach back, and then you talk on Skype, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And plus, like, when you go to a conference, Twitter becomes this amazing tool to communicate with people everywhere across, even not on the conference, like who's not there, but like is engaged with it. Yep. But you can say, oh, we're all meeting up for lunch later at whatever. It's amazing to like really get that like communication through the ether. It's so cool, and it's all live. And
yeah.
I think Twitter like is cool, but that just takes it to a new level.
Yep.
So let's see. I use Billings Pro, or I'm sorry, I just use Billings, not Pro, for my time tracking. I've always been looking for a better time tracking app, but I found this to be the best. I can send invoices, and I don't have to pay a monthly fee like with FreshBooks. So definitely like that. I use QuickBooks. My accountant recommended it. Also, if you're a freelancer or you're a small business person, definitely get an accountant. Like, it's not that expensive. It's so worth paying. They'll pay for themselves in a year, like your tax credit, and you don't have to worry about. I mean, your time is money. If you're billing $100 an hour, why waste eight of your hours when you could be making that money? So
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, it's so worth it.
Yep.
So
let's jump into the lightning round. We'll ask you a series of quick questions. You have a series of quick answers. The one plugin you cannot live without.
Regenerate thumbnails.
Good one. Favorite WordPress or business book?
Ooh, favorite WordPress or business book? I don't really have a favorite WordPress book. I do have a favorite programming book that I'm reading right now. It's The Clean Coder.
Okay.
I don't know who the author is, but I'm sure you can look that up.
A quote you live or run your business by?
Take responsibility.
The best business or career advice you've ever received?
Be honest.
The longest a client project has taken?
Oh, God. Let's see. Something like 6 months, and I still never got paid for it.
Wow. If you had to switch to another CMS, what would it be and why?
Probably something simple on Rails.
Okay. First time I get that answer.
Maybe something like Jekyll.
All right. Who should I interview next?
Heather Acton.
Okay. And what is the one question I didn't ask you that I should have?
What code editor? You didn't let me to get to the code editor that I use.
Okay. What code editor?
Sublime Text 2.
Oh, you're the second one today to call that one.
Yeah, Ryan Duff uses that?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, I love Sublime. What question? I don't know. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Building a vast team?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't have to worry about that, actually. That was actually one of the questions that sparked me leaving my old job. I couldn't lie. I was like, I don't see myself. I'm like, I see myself running my own business.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny because now I don't even have to worry about it. I can think about it if I want, but I don't have to try to come up with a very correct answer,
That's awesome. Well, Aaron, this has been an awesome interview. I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Likewise. It's been great.
What I want to tell folks is this is the podcast that I do about WordPress careers, running a business, whether you're in WordPress up to your neck or if you're just starting out. These podcasts, these folks that come on that I interview have some great advice for all facets, business, WordPress, and otherwise. mattreport.com/subscribe. Jump on the mailing list. Aaron, where can people find you to say thanks?
You can hit me up on Twitter, Aaron J. Holbrook, and you can follow me on my blog, aaronjholbrook.com.
Awesome. All right, Aaron. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Matt. Take care.
Take care.